In our very first lecture, we discussed the element of fire. This means that not only do logs burn, but fire has a subtle form as well. Just as we talked about how a gaze can touch another person when we look at them, that's why we can feel someone's gaze on the back of our neck. Similarly, everything that exists in this world carries the power of fire, and for a person, this power can be characterized by its alignment with them, leading to feelings of happiness. In other words, happiness arises when we receive good fire into our bodies. Conversely, when a person receives bad fire into their body, they feel discomfort, experiencing heat and various types of malaise, fatigue, lethargy, and so on. There is a subtle fire that we cannot see, and the finest forms of fire cannot be detected by any instruments on this earth except for one instrument. What is it called? Yes, it's called the heart or the mind. The mind is also an instrument connected to the feelings of everything around us. Our feelings, like threads, connect us to our relatives and those around us, expanding our presence in space. It may seem that we are confined to this chair, but in reality, through our feelings, we are connected by our subtle body to all our close friends. You only need to remember, and through your mind, you can connect with everyone you think of, forming a subtle connection. Thus, we are not limited by sitting in a chair. We also have the ability to connect with various objects at a distance through the subtle material nature of the mind. The mind has a subtle material nature and it has a fiery nature. The power of the mind is linked to the power of fire. In this universe, all the fire that exists is the result of the sun's action. The sun has both a physical fire, which you see every day. It warms us quite well like now. The sun also has a subtle fire, which can be called joy. Joy comes from the sun, and that's why the sun is called Ra. Ra is an ancient name for the sun. Yes, it means to give. Joy means to give from the sun. To rejoice means to give from the sun. If a person is joyful, it means they are radiating sunshine from themselves. From them emanates a subtle fire that brings happiness to others. For example, when a clown comes on stage, they are in a mindset of serving others. They jump onto the stage, squat down, and start laughing, making everyone else immediately clutch their stomachs in laughter. This is because the person is filled with the subtle fire of joy. They are filled with the power to serve others and bring them pleasure. Only such a clown can make people laugh. If their laughter is aggressive or they have a bad mood and don't want to serve anyone, they might run onto the stage and start ranting, and everyone looks at them as if they are abnormal. But if they have great love for everyone, the subtle fire of that clown penetrates the hearts of all who are seated, and everyone feels good, laughing along with them. We must understand that this element of fire plays a significant role in our lives. When you go to the doctor and complain of fever or high blood pressure, or if you have digestive issues, or feel cold even in summer, or feel chills, or simply experience some malaise, it means you are lacking joy inside. In other words, you lack the sunshine you can give to others. A person can only feel joy if they are giving sunshine. You can receive sunlight if you give it. This can be compared to flowing water versus a stagnant lake that isn't connected to any rivers. How can you make a lake flow? You must first make the water exit from it, right? And then if there is somewhere for it to enter. And we always have a source to enter from. The sun is always overhead, and the subtle energy from the sun is always present, even if it's cold. The sun is always there. Subtle energy, happiness, and joy always come from the sun. Therefore, we just need to open the tap, start giving joy to others, and automatically joy will also flow into us from the sun. Also, in the last lecture, we talked about the oversoul, which resides in the heart of a person in a spiritual form, and it also automatically gives happiness when a person does something not for themselves. Last time, everything was going well until we touched on the topic related to our attachments, which caused us great anxiety and distress. You know, what do people mostly suffer from in a psychological sense? From the things they are most attached to, you understand? This always happens. There are feelings that are tied to something, you see, feelings that have a subtle material form that permeates a salary that has not yet been paid or that they refuse to pay. And a person experiences suffering. When I touched on this topic, it felt like a knife cutting through the heart, and many began to protest. They said, "How dare you speak about my salary like that? I've worked hard my whole life. I've tried, and you say it's my fault that I'm not being paid." The person is right. They have worked honestly. But we do not fully understand everything that happens in this life. We think there is some injustice, but in reality, the force of happiness is rushing to this earth with great power. But we simply have two types of consciousness among people living on this earth. The first is the desire to serve others, and the second is the desire to serve oneself. When a person wants to serve others, their force of happiness flows from them. They don't say, "I will run out of energy." Some people say they need to reclaim energy. But this is unnecessary. You neither give nor take from anyone. Simply put, when a person serves others, they give continuously, and every second God from within gives them energy, as does the sun. This happens independently of our will. The most amazing thing in this world is that we can willingly give happiness, but we cannot take happiness by our will. This is the greatest mystery. Some people literally shout, "Give me happiness," but happiness doesn't come out from within. Because it's impossible. That's the law. Happiness moves in only one direction. Only by serving others can one find happiness, and it comes on its own, independent of our will. As soon as we focus on happiness rather than on serving others, that stream of happiness ceases to flow to us. We've shifted the focus of the flow. "Oh, how good I feel." In that moment, feeling good stops. Is everything clear? What objections do you have regarding this? Are there any other options? There is another kind of happiness which comes not from the sun or the oversoul, but from the false ego. The false ego resides in our lower centers. It spreads happiness, relaxation. In other words, animal happiness. It spreads animal happiness. And this happiness always contaminates a person and ultimately leads to illness. Happiness that comes from the sun and the oversoul gives health and enlightens a person with knowledge. There are two types of people who seek two types of happiness. One type seeks happiness that tells them, "Take for yourself." This is derived from the false ego. The other type seeks happiness in serving others. They want nothing for themselves, they want to bring joy to others, and then they automatically receive happiness from the sun and the oversoul. This power of happiness has a fiery nature, and without this power of fire, nothing in this world could exist. Love also burns, so love is also fire. And who is our greatest friend on this earth, who always gives us happiness, always with us? God who resides within. Paramatma is God himself. He has spread himself within every person, and he gives us the power of truth. We discern what is good and what is bad through this inner power. We know exactly what is good and what is bad because of this. He also gives us the feeling of happiness when we do something good. Thus, he is always with us, even when we are born in the body of a worm. Do you know that one can be born in the body of a worm? No one knows. Well, since you don't know, let me ask you a question. Are there people who are better or worse than others? One thinks better, another worse. Is that true? And we say, "I will never be like that," right? He doesn't understand anything. He's such a foolish person. You agree, right? But why is there such a difference? Do you know why there is a difference between people? Because there are different desires. Each person has different desires. One is born in different bodies according to the desires they have for this life. Our desires and our past karma shape the body we have. So, if we have desires like a worm, let's say, we lived our whole life with worm-like desires to dig around, paying no attention to anything. This is, of course, a slightly incorrect example because it's very difficult to be born as a worm from a human form of life. But it's likely that one could be born as some kind of animal. This is possible because of different desires and therefore different forms of life. You see, one person is smarter, another is more foolish. Everyone would be the same if there were no differences. Just as we are born in different forms of life among humans, we can also be born in the bodies of animals. The soul is the same in all living beings. It's very small, and therefore we must understand this thing that one can be born anywhere. But I'm telling you this because every living being, even a worm, has the oversoul inside. This is the greatest friend. Do you know what a friend means? Who is a friend anyway? It's someone who won't abandon you in trouble, right? Friends are not recognized when things are good and everyone is smiling. Friends are recognized in times of trouble. If you tell, let's say, your friend, "I'm planning to be born as a piglet in my next life. Will you come with me? Let's go, we'll crawl around there, grunt, then they'll slaughter us and eat us." Who would agree? No one. But the Paramatma always comes with us in any form and serves us, fulfilling all our desires. Everything we want in this life and in the next, we will receive. The question is only when. If we think about something constantly, we will definitely have it, only our past desires are still coming too. And the desires of those living beings who are in relation to us also affect us. For example, we hurt someone, and this person thought, "Bad person, I'm suffering so much because of him, and he doesn't understand." And this desire has gone from that person to us. It has gone and will definitely catch up with us in time. When it catches up, we think, why is it so hard for me? I'm such a good person. I do good for everyone. Why has it become so bad for me right now? We don't know why we are not being paid our salary. We don't know. Therefore, we should not set ourselves up in such a way that if we don't know something, it means there is evil coming from outside. We discussed in previous lectures, there is a formula. If someone understands it, they become happy. Let's recall, where is evil located? Outside or inside? Inside. And who thinks it's outside? Raise your hand. You see, whoever thinks that evil is outside will never recover, because they will always resist the people around them and won't receive the power of happiness. The person who understands that evil comes from their own heart, how does this happen? Let me remind you, when we are born, at that moment we receive the impurities of all our past actions in a subtle form, and they accumulate in our mind. The mind is located in our heart while we think with our head, and in the mind, here in the heart, lies the impurity of our past actions. When we look at another person through our gaze, which also has a fiery nature, the power of dirt coming from our heart is transmitted. And in the blink of an eye, this person feels bad energy from us. And when you look at a person for the first time, you already form some impression of them, right? Instantly. And you can't do anything about it. You want to speak badly or well to them, depending on what energy comes from them. Do you agree with me? So the energy coming from a person relentlessly makes everyone around act as if it is destined for me by fate. If the energy from me goes to the surrounding people, it is destined for me that the surrounding people should act on me in this way. And that's why they act on me like that. In the same way, events, surrounding nature, and everything else act on us. This is called fate, an unyielding force coming from our heart to everything around us. This force, regardless of our will, through our gaze, through our movement, or simply emanating from us, from our body, in a subtle form, it causes others the reaction that I deserved as a result of my past bad actions. We are very dissatisfied. We say, why are you talking to me like that? I only wish you well, right? We don't understand that it comes from us. But the person who understands that if they are treated poorly and spoken to poorly, it means that this happens because they themselves did the same thing earlier. If a person understands this, an awareness of the mistake they made in the past comes to their mind and heart, and at that moment, it hurts a little. But then, in the next moment, this negative force releases them and they see less evil within themselves. They feel that they have become better in an instant. Can you imagine? So if we think that evil is around us, we will never recognize the power that emanates from our hearts and affects those around us. Do you understand me clearly? We will never recognize that power coming from our hearts. If we believe that evil comes from outside, that everyone is to blame, that the country is to blame, that the government is to blame, that we are all good and everyone else is bad, we will never realize that all of this is caused by the bad actions we have committed in the past. This is a small digression. So today we are studying the 3 doshas. That means 3 different types of imbalances in our life that Ayurveda considers. The first imbalance is Vata dosha. This is when we make incorrect decisions and our capacity for action suffers. This means that the movement of air in our bodies is disrupted because activity relies on the subtle energy of air. When we don't want to rejoice in our surroundings and be in a mood of service and joy, then Pitta dosha suffers. Pitta means fire, and a disturbed Pitta dosha means that the subtle element of fire in our body is suffering. We also have healthy fire, which is undisturbed. This is Dhatu Pitta. Dhatu means healthy, a healthy force. Dosha is what suffers. So where does fire come from? Fire comes from the sun, from the surrounding factors of our lives, and the fire in food comes from the earth. The fire coming from the earth is in ignorance. The fire coming from people is in passion. The fire coming from the sun is in pure goodness. A person who serves others and rejoices, is in joy, receives fire coming from the sun. They are in a state of pure goodness. A person who wants something from other people and gives something in return, receives their fire from other people and is in passion. But life in passion, they receive happiness at times and suffering at others. A person who does not want to do anything for anyone, living only for themselves and not wanting to touch anyone, receives fire from the earth and is in ignorance. And someone who does not want to receive any fire at all, who is fed up with everything, will undoubtedly exhaust themselves and leave this body they currently inhabit. Therefore, there is no possibility to live without desires. Some desires are needed. If a person wants to do something good for others, they have a desire for pure goodness. If they want to do something good for themselves and do it for others in order to receive something in return, their desire is in passion. A person who wants to do something good only for themselves is in ignorance. There are 5 main types of fire in our body. These are Sanskrit terms. I will explain now. There is a center in us, right here. In the center there is the solar plexus, where the fire called Pachaka lives. This Pachaka fire is responsible for digesting food and always works correctly if a person is in a state of joy and has a peaceful attitude towards everyone around them. And if they are very attentive to everything around them, then their Pachaka fire always works correctly, but there are also improper functions. When a person is not joyful, when they are sad, this fire begins to weaken and their digestion deteriorates. When a person is inattentive, that is, attention arises from purposefulness. If a person has no purpose in life, if they live simply in vain and idly, treating everything very superficially, this means that their attention weakens, and due to the weakening of attention, their proper consumption of food decreases and they eat indiscriminately. They do not know what is good for them and what is not, because they lack life goals. Do you understand these connections or not? How if there's no purpose in life and attention weakens because of this? Do you know how this happens? An example can be given. When a person has an exam tomorrow and today they are told the topic that will be on the exam, they have a goal. Who has experienced this? When there is focus, attention naturally arises. Similarly, if a person does not want to waste their life, that is called being reasonable. Only a reasonable person lives purposefully, and a reasonable person who lives with a goal is attentive, so they do not eat indiscriminately. They know what they should eat and what they should not eat. As a result, their digestive fire remains in a pure goodness, not contaminated state. Besides the increase and decrease of this fire, there is also a state of purity and contamination depending on what goes into their mouths. Sometimes you ask a person what they ate today, they say, I simply don't have time to think about it. I don't know. Like a piglet, when it walks and eats, it might even bite the tail of another nearby piglet. Just eating there and a tail gets caught and that one starts squealing nearby. I've observed it. 2 piglets are eating, one's tail falls on the other's food. It bites off the tail of another living being, eats the tail, while the other squeals in protest. So we can eat indiscriminately, say, the legs of other living beings. We gather hooves to make very tasty dishes. Yes. We take hooves that have walked through dirt and filth their whole lives, soaked in it. Then this is given to us, these hooves and tails, and it all together makes something delicious. This is called meat jelly. The quality of the food determines the quality of the fire. If we eat fruit that grows on a tree, it is pure goodness. Vegetables that grow in the ground also have the quality of pure goodness, but they have the quality of passion. And meat has the quality of degradation. Do you know how meat translates? Maya means I, so means similar, meat means similar to me. In other words, one who eats those similar to themselves is in degradation. Therefore, the fire can be different, depending on different types of fire, which is formed from our mood and our attitude towards life. Our state of mind gives strength to the fire. Let's say a person eats meat with joy. In a state of complete happiness, they may have a strong fire in their belly, but this fire is not pure. You understand? In ignorance, it creates an ignorant state of consciousness. If a person eats joyfully what is needed, then their fire in the belly becomes pure, and they gain the strength of true happiness, serving others. If a person eats what is destined for them to eat, meaning people are destined to eat plant-based and dairy foods, a true person, that is a reasonable person, Homo sapiens, understands what is proper to eat and what is not. An unreasonable person doesn't understand. A reasonable person eats what is appropriate for humans, acquiring a state of goodness in the process. Their fire from the stomach begins to spread to all the cells of the body, filling them with this strength, and the metabolism in all the cells is also filled with subtle energy. That means that it also depends on the subtle energy that comes from the stomach, from the fire of digestion. Therefore, the fire of digestion burns in the stomach, our internal sun in the stomach, on which our mood depends. When we drink hot sweetened milk, which is in the mode of pure goodness, at night before bed, we have pure goodness in our stomach all night. We sleep very soundly, calmly. Because milk is poorly digested and stays in the belly for a long time, the power of goodness flows into our minds for a long time. If we eat something else at night, then the suffering of that cow, which died and was then eaten, flows into our minds. I tell you this out of compassion because I know many people who come to me and say they feel bad and heavy, not knowing where the misfortune has come from. You see, we do not know where misfortune comes from. It comes from the heart and from the stomach, from two places. Unhappiness comes from the heart due to our bad thoughts and bad actions, and from the stomach comes the unhappiness of lack of knowledge, that is, the unhappiness of degradation, when we put in our mouth not what we should. Please forgive me for saying things that may not be pleasant to hear. I simply must do this. If a doctor wants to be nice, he's unlikely to cure the patient because the patient is not sick because he's doing everything right. If a person is sick, it means there are some mistakes on their part. We must understand that the fire of digestion is important in our lives. All toxins in the body are formed as a result of the lack of a sufficiently strong and proper fire of digestion. If the fire of digestion is in degradation, then it destroys the body. Gastritis or burning in various parts of the body occur. All this comes from bad digestive fire. Wherever it burns in the body, it all comes from improper digestion. And digestion itself depends on what state of consciousness we are in. If we are in a state of happiness, everything gets digested. If a person is in a state of depression, their digestive fire decreases. Are there people with low digestive fire, with decreased acidity? This means the power of depression has crept inside. Who knows how to test whether I'm in depression or not? There is superficial joy and deep joy. When a person experiences deep joy, they are in a state of silence. When they rejoice, they are in a state of silence. But a person who experiences superficial joy feels that something is still missing. They may laugh, but they are not truly amused. But a person who experiences deep joy is always very satisfied from within. When a person can feel deep satisfaction from within at least once a day, it means they are not in depression. If a person has forgotten when satisfaction comes to them from within, it means they are in depression, and their digestive fire is definitely not strong enough, meaning toxins will accumulate in the body. Sometimes the digestive fire can suffer in different directions. It can decrease or increase. If good digestive fire increases, it does not irritate the stomach lining, and gastritis does not occur. But sometimes the digestive fire is strong, but it destroys our body. From what it arises, who knows? It arises from passion. When a person is in a state of passion, meaning they want something for themselves, but they need to do something for that, meaning they are in a state of passion. For example, they want a salary, but to get it they have to work, and they work at full strength precisely because of the desire to have more money. Not out of joy, not because they like doing something useful for people. A person works only for the salary, and that's all. Apart from the salary, nothing else interests them. Then they are in a state of passion. It does not bring them happiness, but increases the corrosive fire within, and this corrosive fire causes increased acidity. Sometimes they say, a choleric person, meaning they have a lot of bile, or poor strength, for example, of the pancreas or liver. The same poor strength can also be in the stomach. Although there is no such term as acidic person, but anyway, you should know that it exists. And when different types of fire are disturbed, there are various accents in a person's character. Depending on these accents, a person may have their pancreas producing too many unnecessary enzymes, or the stomach, or the liver. All three of these organs have fire. This fire relates to pachaka, different types. The fire coming from the stomach, located in the stomach, is connected to our actions, how we act. If a person's actions are in passion, then their digestive fire will suffer. They will experience increased acidity, heartburn, and feel discomfort and pain. Usually such people are restless, always in a hurry. They need to do something quickly, rush somewhere. They never have time. They don't have time to sit in a lecture. They don't have time for treatment. No time to think. More, faster, we need more, it's not enough. The wrong kind of fire, the one coming from the pancreas which damages it, comes from bad thoughts. When a person is filled with negative thoughts, thinking aggressively or holding on to resentment, the pancreas suffers. And from there, the fire builds up, causing heaviness in the upper abdomen. A person thinks aggressively, cursed people, what did they do to me? Cursed country, what has it done to me? He constantly dwells on such thoughts, and his pancreas suffers because of it. Now the fire that comes from the liver, a bad one, it comes from bad desires, from wanting to do something wrong. For example, we think, I'm going to get back at my boss, Fyodor Petrovich. Let him get what's coming to him someday. If I can't, then God will definitely handle it. and these thoughts occur every day, all the time. As a result, Fyodor Petrovich undoubtedly feels some inner discomfort. He feels the weight of being a boss. It's tough for him, that's certain. But the person who constantly thinks this way undoubtedly damages their liver and bile ducts, leading to inflammatory processes in the liver, like various types of hepatitis. This kind of thinking also causes duodenal ulcers and similar diseases. However, when a person treats others with honesty, and an honest person means someone who doesn't wish ill on anyone, they think, well, all right, my boss is a bit tough. He left me without a paycheck for a couple of months. He's a bit harsh. But perhaps as a child he didn't receive enough warmth. His parents probably didn't give him enough love. No big deal. When we think like this, a warm thought about us comes to the boss's heart at that moment. It reaches his heart. It may not reach his head yet, as the head might be occupied with something else, or even with nothing at all, but it certainly reaches the heart. When that person sees us next time, he'll look at us differently. That's why we must never think badly about others. Also, we shouldn't think negatively about events happening around us. Then our pancreas won't suffer. We shouldn't make bad decisions towards anyone. Then our liver will work normally. And if on top of that we act correctly, we won't have problems with high acidity. This fire, Pachaka, we've discussed so far. The next fire is Ranjaka. This fire is connected with our desire to act, with our inner drive, with the power of creation. When we have a goal in life and we want to do something good, this fire is related to the power of creation, the power to do something for others. Without this fire, nothing happens. A person might feel, it's hard for me to do anything. I feel sluggish, weak. I can't do anything. Why does this happen? Where does weakness come from? It's due to low blood pressure. When atmospheric pressure drops, we feel weak. And why does the atmospheric pressure drop around us? Because at some point, we wanted to do nothing. We didn't want to do anything, and now that desire has been fulfilled, the atmospheric pressure drops, and we feel the same way inside, just like today. Do you know that today's pressure fluctuation has made many people feel worse? Did you know that? You didn't? This happens due to our fate. Why do we not want to do anything? Because a person doesn't believe in happiness. The lack of desire to act, work, or create arises from the fact that at some point we became disappointed in life. In the sense that this life has any meaning at all. Why do we get disappointed? Because the conditions for living a happy life here aren't the most favorable. Look at how many bad things are happening around us. This means we were born in less than ideal circumstances. So there's nothing to boast about. This comes from the false ego when we say, I'm a man, I'm better, or I'm a woman, I'm better. The next stage of spreading the false ego is when we say, I'm Russian. Now we're talking about nationality. Then we say, I'm human. We expand ourselves, and we take pride in that. When a person realizes there's not much to be proud of, they enter a state of humility. Life becomes much easier for them. Because in that state, their false ego doesn't clash with others. You know that from the statement, I'm Russian, many wars have arisen in the past. You know that our false ego clashes with I'm German, and a war starts. Each person believes they're right just because they belong to a certain nationality. This is called egoism driven by the ego. It's the power that comes from the ego. So, a person who's in a state of egoism gets disappointed in the idea that there's any point in doing anything. They feel a sense of meaninglessness in everything that happens because we were born for joy. We're meant to live only for happiness. But when we do something and there's no happiness, what's the point of living? And we subconsciously become disappointed, something many of you won't even be able to recognize in yourselves. You'll say, I'm not disappointed. Everything's fine. How can you tell if there's disappointment or not? If every moment of your life you don't feel like doing something good, then disappointment is there. Basically, almost everyone is disappointed so far. I haven't felt disappointment in myself. Not yet. Ranjaka is responsible for the formation of blood in our bodies. A person who has the desire to create, to build, and who is happy because they have a purpose in life has a good immune system and all their blood-forming functions work properly. But for a person who feels disappointment as a result of various types of disappointment and the sense of meaninglessness that enters our minds, various kinds of blood disorders arise. This includes issues with leukocytes and all blood-related functions, such as metabolic and other bodily processes related to blood. Immune functions gradually deteriorate, the body's metabolism becomes disrupted, and metabolic disorders occur. This means the Ranjaka fire within a person is disturbed. This fire can be very strong. It can be very strong, it can be weak, it can be beneficial, and it can be detrimental. The fire can be strong and good when a person is focused and has a clear purpose in life. Such people feel happiness from every moment of their lives. This indicates that their blood and metabolism are strong, and their immune system is also good, so they don't suffer from infectious diseases. But there can also be a strong and bad fire. This happens when one's life goals are not very noble, when the intent isn't purely to do good for others, but rather mixed with self-interest, meaning doing good to others, but to have something for oneself from it. In this case, the fire of creation begins to suffer. The fire is strong because their desires and creative potential are great, but the internal impurity that comes from within disrupts this fire. As a result, aggressive leukocytes appear, leading to various allergic reactions as a result of collisions with the surroundings. So, while the fire of creation is strong, because a person collides with everything around, antagonism impacts the person deeply and they react to it. If a person wishes good for everyone, they won't encounter anything negative from others. Similarly, a person in a positive mood will not notice a pile of garbage on the left and instead will notice roses on the right. Meanwhile, someone in a bad mood will not notice the roses and fixate on a pile of garbage, saying, "Again, they didn't clean up the street." Such a person won't see the roses and won't say, "What beautiful roses." Thus, there are two types of consciousness. Antagonistic consciousness, which is like the consciousness of a fly. A person with fly consciousness always sees only the bad, always finding something to criticize everywhere they go. Wherever they go, they think, "This is bad, that is bad." Such a person criticizes everything. A person in the state of a bee sees only the honey in everything. Such a person doesn't linger at all where things are bad, but stays where the flowers are, where there's nectar. Such a person touches it with his legs and carries it to the hive, where the whole family benefits from it. Therefore, a person in the bee consciousness brings happiness to others. On the contrary, a person in the state of a fly has no purpose in life because he is disappointed in his goal and blames everyone at every moment. He says to everyone, "This is bad, that is bad, and that's why I feel bad." But it's not bad because everything around is bad. It's bad because there is no purpose in life. The negativity comes from within, not from outside. It's very easy to see this in the relationship between a father and a child. When a child gets a bad grade and we are in a good mood, we say, "It's okay, next time you'll get a good one." But when we are in a bad mood, we say, "Did you get a low grade again?" In this way, everyone around is to blame when there is no inner satisfaction. Therefore, we should focus on finding something good around us and doing something useful. This will improve our blood health and everything will be fine with our blood. There will be no anemia or bleeding. Do you know what causes bleeding? It stems from having secret aggressive desires against people around us. There is a subtle desire for aggression. It means that we disapprove of the activities of others. When we don't like what others are doing, the subtle energy of their blood affects our own, creating pressure on our blood. This weakens our blood vessels as they are connected with the activity, and we get these bleedings. Anemia occurs because we didn't want to do good, but instead had harmful intentions. The first fire, Pachaka, what does it arise from? It arises from a state of inner happiness. And the second fire, Ranjaka, what does it arise from? It comes from the desire to create. This fire is also responsible for the formation of pigment cells. There is a disease called vitiligo. This means that a person has some hidden unwillingness to create or lacks the desire to act. Excessive pigmentation also appears when a person is driven by passion. If their activity is fueled by passion, then excessive pigmentation begins. The spleen, liver, and thymus gland also suffer from this, along with the immune system. A person's immunity always weakens when their desire to act or to create is misaligned, not rooted in goodness. The next, third fire is Sadaka. Sadaka is a very important fire. It is located in the heart and is responsible for whether we will be happy in this life. Do you know when this fire functions properly? It works well when a person does not attach their feelings to the transient, temporary things, but to the eternal. When a person thinks that the most important thing in life is to bring happiness to all people and to understand if there is God. They want to find out whether God exists or not, if there is any meaning or organization in this world, or if everything is just chaos. They want to understand and figure this out, as there are many different opinions. They deeply wish to understand this with all their heart and soul, and they want everyone around them to be happy without materialistic desires. Rather, they use material things only as needed. They know they need to eat, sleep, and raise children, and for that, they need some resources. They earn exactly as much as they need to live, and don't worry much about lacking material things, because it's not the most important thing in their life. The most important thing in their life is to understand why do they live, how to make other people happy. You know, a child doesn't need a bicycle from us as much as love, you understand? There are old movies from when our spirituality was more intact, and in some of those films you see a child approach his mother and say, "Mom, give me a sweat." She replies with a smile, "Son, we don't have any sweats because we don't have enough money to buy it." She says this in a state of joy, and the son smiles and says, "Okay, then I'll go." We don't see this now, right? Do you know why? It's because children don't really need sweats. They need some kind of joy, you understand? There are two types of joy, material and spiritual. When a mother gives her child spiritual joy, by being present with him in happiness, the child can give up material joys and can live without a bicycle or candy. But when a mother doesn't provide spiritual joy to the child, when she is in a state of anxiety, worrying about how to earn more money to buy a bicycle for the child, then the child develops strong material joys, and these material desires grow like mushrooms. "I don't need this small bicycle, I want a big one." And you can't seem to earn enough for a bicycle. You think there's no happiness in life, just suffering. Even this child is growing up and draining all my energy, right? Because our mind, which is focused on material things, doesn't understand that a child just needs happiness just like any living being. If you simply pet a kitten, it will even stop wanting to eat for a while you're petting it. Once you stop, it will go back to eating again. The point is that there is spiritual happiness and there is material happiness. If a family is focused on bringing joy to others, then the children don't act up or want too much because they are content. This fire of happiness in a child and in an adult is in the heart, and it governs mental functions and the connection with the intellect. It is responsible for joy, memory, and diligence. This means that when we are in a state of happiness and joy, our children grow up smart, diligent, and have good memory. If we are not in a state of wanting to bring joy to others and our life is aimless or aimed at bringing some temporary pleasure, for example, like building a house, we might think, "Now, I will be happy," but then you look around and the house is empty. That means you still need to work just as hard to buy good furniture, or people will think poorly of you. A big house but with bad furniture. So you work just as hard to buy good furniture. Then after you've worked that much, you fill the house with good furniture. A good house, good furniture, but your neighbor's is worse, and there are so many thieves around. You'll need security and everything else, and you're always anxious, with crazy ideas running through your head. And you need to clean everything constantly from top to bottom, spending the whole day cleaning. It's impossible. That's why if we aim for large material happiness, we face many problems. You have to maintain it all, as material things always fall apart, but spiritual things do not. If the house is small, but there are many friends and lots of happiness around us and we do good things for others, what can be said about such a person? That they are joyful. But that's our goal, to be happy. So we need to figure out where happiness is achieved more quickly. Is it when we are conscious, or when we are stubbornly pursuing something just because of persistence? For example, a child says, "I want a bicycle," and that's it. "I want a bicycle," and that's all. And we too say, "I want a 3-bedroom apartment." This arises simply from a misunderstanding of things. Over time, as life energy flows through our body via the oversoul, we receive everything we need at the right moment. When the time comes, we get the 3-bedroom apartment. It doesn't mean we don't have to do anything for it. The oversoul will tell you at the right moment, "Go there, do this, and you will get that 3-bedroom apartment." This happens at the right time, and you realize after all the struggle, you got the apartment easily. Has anyone experienced this in life? Raise your hands. You struggle like a fish against the ice when it's unnecessary, and when it's time, it comes easily without any stress. You don't even feel happy, you just think, "Of course it came." Agree? At the right time. That's why there's no need to put in excessive effort. It ruins the health of both us and our loved ones. So, there's no need to exert excessive effort in achieving material wealth. If it's not here now, it will come later. You just need to be confident that it will, because God is the best friend inside us. He knows what everyone needs and when. Why, for example, isn't someone being paid their salary right now? There are different reasons, many reasons for this. Sometimes a person deprived someone of money in a past life, and now, in this life, they're experiencing the same. People like this are gathered in one place by certain forces that help us pay our debts. They gather such people together, and suddenly the dollar rises and everyone loses their salaries. It's easy to make this happen. Or, in another case, if you give someone money, they will just drink it away. So God takes it away and they sit there miserable with no money. But all their relatives are happy. Thank God there's no money, so they stay sober. You understand? So it depends on your perspective, whether having money is happiness or not. That's why we shouldn't get too upset about whether we have money or not. There will always be food. Who among you doesn't eat? Raise your hands. Everyone eats. In socialist society, it was interesting. Everyone complained that there was nothing, but if you looked in their fridge, it was overflowing. How does that work? Everyone will have what they need in due time. Sometimes a person might go hungry. This means the highest good. When a person experiences such asceticism practice and difficulties, they are cleansed by this and can even reach the higher planets. This is also God's mercy. Everything happens as grace, and we shouldn't worry about what happens in our lives. Then our sadhaka, this fire of strength in the heart, will burn away all our negative deeds. When we live in virtue, when we think about good things and direct our gaze toward real, true happiness, which is spiritual in nature, not material. Even any object that surrounds us, if made with love, carries spiritual happiness within it. You understand? But if we direct our focus toward spiritual strength, we will be 10 times happier, 100 times, 1,000 times, millions of times. A person can infinitely increase the power of happiness within them, and the strength of this happiness determines the level of life they rise to. This depends on the inner happiness of a person, and the strength of happiness depends on their purity. How well a person treats others and cares about the destiny of others makes them purer, allowing them to improve their life even here, and in the next life they will live in better conditions. Mental functions have a fiery nature, so when we look at the sun and wish happiness for all, at that moment the subtle energy of the sun permeates us, and our senses are cleansed. Our senses become attached to material objects, which get weighed down by the fact that matter is constantly breaking down, and we suffer from that. We constantly have to maintain everything, taking care of the house and everything else. This care comes from the attachment of our senses to all these things. But if we attach our feelings to the spiritual, then instantly our feelings are illuminated with happiness right away, because the spiritual does not decrease. The spiritual always remains at the same height, at the same level. Therefore, the soul never dies. It doesn't age. It's eternal. Therefore, if we wish happiness to everyone, want everyone to have everything good, don't wish harm to anyone, it means the power of our mind is in a state of purity. When the mind is in a state of purity, a person has a good memory. How do we improve memory? By having a pure consciousness. Then the memory becomes bright and clear, and images become vivid, and inside everything is understood and functions well. This happens because we have enough common sense to treat others well. True focus in a person, true self-awareness, comes when they realize that there is meaning in life, that this life has meaning. Few people understand this. Most people think, you just have to live, and that's it. But when a person realizes that life has meaning, not just living, but living with purpose, life becomes meaningful. And you need to live with purpose, right? In that moment, their heart becomes illuminated when they understand this. The heart is illuminated with the fire of the heart, and the fire of the heart burns away the bad actions of the past. In this way, a person gains a good fate for the future. Therefore, when a person works to make everyone happy, they undoubtedly purify their heart from whatever bad things are inside, from their past wrongdoings. And if a person treats the root of a tree with love, waters the root of the tree, then the entire tree and all its leaves are illuminated by the power of happiness. In other words, if a person loves God who resides in their heart and gives them everything, happiness, joy, and the understanding of how to act correctly. Do you know who understands how to act correctly? The one who loves God within. They turn their gaze toward God, and God gives them the understanding of how to act correctly. Such a person never makes mistakes. Imagine that. It's that simple. But how can you turn your gaze toward someone who is invisible? How do you focus on them? We cannot see him, but when we fill our life with meaning, when we say, that's it. From today, I no longer want to live aimlessly. I'm tired. I want to rejoice, to be happy, and I want my life to have meaning. So I want to realize and understand what that meaning is. I want to understand why I live, just to understand. To start understanding somehow. I just want this. Please, God, give me this opportunity. If you are in my heart, as they have told us, that you are in my heart. You can try an experiment like this. Today, when you get home, everyone can say to themselves, to God who is in their heart, that's it. I'm tired of it. I want a joyful and happy life. I want a life with meaning. Please give me this opportunity. And God from within the heart will fulfill this desire. And then we will have an understanding of what is right and what to do to be happy, so that life has meaning. At that moment, the mind, which resides in the heart, becomes illuminated. A person with a pure mind, illuminated by happiness, never feels too hot or too cold. Why don't they feel too hot, as we discussed? Because they don't feel negative energy from the sun. Why does a person feel negative energy from the sun and get too hot? Do you know? Because there is a strong desire for resistance within them. When a person has no desire for resistance and only wants to rejoice in everything, the power of the sun doesn't clash with them because they give exactly as much as is destined for them by fate. A person born in this place should give as much happiness to everyone around them as the sun shines on them. And then they will never be burned by the sunlight. If they don't see the sun, it is gone. The subtle energy of the sun is always with them, and they will never freeze if they give the power of happiness to everyone else. In other words, they are kind people. They give the power of happiness like Porfiry Ivanov, you know? He walked in just pants and didn't freeze. People would ask him, why aren't you cold? He says, because I'm kind. If we have pure energy in our hearts, then from the sun comes pure fire into our hearts, and we also feel good and warm. So who feels cold? A cold-hearted person. A cold-hearted person gets cold, while a warm-hearted person doesn't. If you want to avoid feeling cold, you just need to give joy to everyone, wish happiness to everyone, and then you will be in warmth. So the next fire is Alochaka. The fourth fire is Alochaka. It is responsible for vision, and it connects us to the surrounding world through perception, Alochaka. It has a subtle nature, and it is very strongly, closely connected with the fire, Sadaka, which is responsible for mental functions, meaning they are interconnected. Alochaka is the visual fire, the fire associated with vision. If a person is in the consciousness of a bee, meaning they want to see only joy in everything, they simply realize that there is no point in looking at bad things and criticizing. Do you know why there is no point in criticizing? Because when we are angry and criticize, a stink comes from our hearts, and people simply won't accept it. Do you understand? They will turn away. No matter how much you tell someone that they are behaving badly, they still won't listen to you. They simply don't like the way you speak or the mindset with which you speak. If my mindset isn't right, then no one will listen to me, 100%. They'll think, ugh, what an unpleasant person. Always complaining, always saying we're bad, but we're good. And so, we should always accumulate more of this goodness within. We must look at everyone with a good fire inside. So when we have a good fire coming from our eyes, that good fire comes only when we want to see the good. And this desire arises because the person is tired of seeing bad things. They simply see that there is no point in it. When they look at something bad, they are filled with bad energy and become polluted. When they are polluted, they cannot help anyone or do anything good. Why does this happen? Because no one wants to listen to them or perceive them. So when we are in a bad mood, no one needs us, right? When a person realizes this, they think, I will try to see as much good as possible. They look for good facial features in another person. They search for good things around them. With their gaze, they focus on everything good. Even in a drunk person lying in the mud, they still find something good in them. They think, perhaps this person didn't find happiness and that's why they are lying in a puddle. Thus, such a person, if their gaze falls on something not very good, they will try not to react and quickly look away. And if their gaze falls on something good, they try to keep their gaze on it longer. In this way, joy comes from such a person's eyes, and people say, beautiful eyes. Beautiful eyes mean they want to see the good. This fire, Alochaka, when good energy comes from their eyes, it means they become attractive. Attractive is not the one who wears makeup. Do you know why a girl who has put on makeup becomes more attractive? She looks at everyone and thinks, everyone must see how beautiful I am. Today I'm not just ordinary, I'm wearing makeup, so I'm beautiful. She searches with her eyes. This person sees that I'm beautiful, and this one sees it too. She's as focused as a bee, but it's a different kind of bee. It's directed differently, trying to collect honey for herself in this mood. But true beauty comes from the eyes, not the outside. That doesn't mean you shouldn't wear makeup. Go ahead, I have no objection. But beauty should come from the eyes. That's the most important thing. When does beauty shine from the eyes? When a person sees only the good in everything. A good light coming from the eyes is the secret to beauty. Who agrees with me? Everyone, 100% agree. The next fire is the Brajaka fire, the fifth one. This fire is responsible for our piety, for how pure we are. If a person is pure and has pure intentions, they shine. This fire creates a radiance around a person, and we all see it. We say, "You look a bit dark and tired today," or "You look bright." Depending on whether a person is bright or dark, that's how much of the pious fire they have in their body. If a person lives a very pious life, they always look bright and shine like the sun. If they live an impious life, they look dark and gloomy. No amount of makeup will help. People will still see that you're gloomy. It's hard to change that. When a person gets sick, it's time to pay for past bad deeds. Their piety also fades. They darken. A sick person looks gloomy. When bad fate passes, they regain strength, shine, and brightness. The fire sparkles. Sometimes we mistake a radiant person for God. We search for this light, for this shining person. We are always searching for God in others. A woman searches for God in a man. That's how nature designed it. Through a man, God gives a woman his strength and radiance. A woman looks and thinks, "Where is this handsome, good man?" She thinks it's God himself. But then the man ages and she wonders, why was he so radiant before, but now he's not? We were confused. We were looking for God, but found just a man. He ages and stops being radiant. Then we think, no, I made a mistake. I should find another who shines. We look and see, this one is radiant. Now we love another. After a few years, he fades again. We think, another mistake again. And so, life becomes a series of mistakes. That's how nature made it, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at each other. We need to understand that all the beauty in a person comes from God. If it's our personal beauty, why can't we keep it? If it's my own thing, shouldn't I be able to hold on to it? So why does beauty fade? We get sad when beauty leaves us. When beauty is gone and no one looks at us anymore, we feel sad, even though the soul remains. If the soul wishes happiness for everyone, it becomes beautiful again, and the body also becomes beautiful. Beauty will never leave us if we wish happiness for everyone. I've described 5 types of fire. The fire that gives radiance is linked to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are responsible for a person's longevity. They are the organs of longevity. Who has well-functioning adrenal glands in a state of goodness? Who doesn't feel lazy? If a person is filled with laziness, their adrenal function immediately decreases. That person immediately loses their shine. How can you tell how someone's adrenal glands are functioning? By how much shine comes from them. If there's good radiance, the adrenal glands are working well. If the right side shines more than the left, the right adrenal gland works better than the left. Doctors can diagnose it. If the right cheek shines more than the left, the right adrenal gland is stronger than the left. If a person isn't lazy, they have a desire to work. And when do they have the desire to work, When life has meaning, when they see a purpose in life. You need to see a goal. For this, you need to educate yourself. Right now, we're all here doing just that. When I explain, I'm also trying to understand it better myself. We are all educating ourselves now. Education gives greater focus in life. Greater focus in life creates a desire to do something. A sense of purpose appears. This stimulates adrenal activity, and a person's life becomes longer. Life in general depends on our past actions. But a person can live in a sluggish state, like a withered flower, or in an active state. What's the point of old age if I can't do anything useful and will just sit in a half-bent state? When a person is focused and their life has meaning, they never become inactive in old age. They are filled with strength until their death. We know examples of such saints. They worked for God their entire lives and shone like the sun until their last breath. What if a loved one has lost their sense of purpose in life? They often say they're tired of everything. How would you behave with them? Thank you for the question. If a loved one has lost their sense of purpose in life and doesn't know what to do, they're tired of everything, you need to sincerely and lovingly wish them happiness every minute of your life. There's nothing more you need to do. Don't bother them with wise advice. Just wish them happiness from your heart. Without a doubt, in that very moment, since thoughts have a subtle material nature, they will receive from you a sense of purpose in their heart. If even one person wishes happiness to another, There is a purpose in life. In time, they themselves will want to wish others happiness. Just like a small piggy bank fills up faster because it's smaller, while a bigger one fills up more slowly. When you wish happiness to a loved one who has lost their happiness, you fill your own life with meaning, and your piggy bank also fills up. You fill up 2 piggy banks at once, his and yours. There's really nothing more to do. When he starts to treat you well, that time will come, and finally ask, "What should I do?" if you see that he wants to listen to you. This is the most important meaning. Should you say something to a person? Does he want to listen to you? If he doesn't want to, then there's no need to speak. If he does want to, you should speak, but without any pomp, calmly, gently, and understandably. Then he will listen, understand, and his life will change. First, you need to wish others happiness until trust appears. Trust is the foundation of any contact between people. Without trust, nothing can exist, neither upbringing nor relationships in a team. Trust only arises when one person sincerely wishes happiness for another. There are no other reasons. You can't achieve trust through techniques. You can make gestures, put on different smiles, say yes, 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 and bring tea. But if there's callousness in your heart toward this person, trust won't be there. It will just be superficial. There are 3 types of friendship in this universe. The first type of friendship is when a friend never leaves. Such a friend is like God. And God is our best friend because He is always with us. We have talked about this before. The second type of friendship is when friendship results from our familial relationships as a result of our closeness. That is, a person becomes a friend because of closeness, you understand? However, such a friend may leave. Familial friendship crumbles when personal interests are at stake. The third type of friendship is formal friendship, which develops from business relationships. This third type can hardly be called friendship at all. The second type of friendship can still be called friendship if the person is good, your relative. If they're not good, you can't call it friendship because they don't truly wish well for others. They just do good for you because of their relation to you, because you're their relative. They bring something to you but not to others, and they do this because of your familial connection. Because you're a relative, they'll bring things to you. The third type of friendship brings happiness. As for the first type of friendship we mentioned, it is a friendship that flows. Divine friendship means that a person will never abandon another, even in times of trouble. A true friend wishes happiness for another because God always wishes only happiness for us, but we are not always ready to accept it from Him. You understand? We don't always want to do something good for others, so happiness doesn't flow from Him to us. Because if we wanted to harm others and happiness still flowed from Him, we'd enjoy doing bad things to others, right? We would take pleasure in it, right? And everything would fall apart. We'd eat each other in 5 minutes. God only allows happiness to flow through good actions. That's why God wishes us happiness, and He acts this way. How would you behave with Him, just as I've mentioned now? I try to live this way. It doesn't always work, but I will keep trying. A question about stones. Do second-hand jewelry items, like garnet for example, carry bad energy if not bought from a store? If it's bought second-hand, not from a store, it means that some person carries bad energy. I buy it and I get jinxed. If I'm jinxed, it means I'll get sick, right? That's why we need to be very careful about everything that surrounds us. One needs to look at who can jinx me at our gathering. Maybe someone here has such power, the power to jinx. That's why I should give the lecture carefully and watch very closely. The enemy never sleeps. If they jinx me, that's it. Game over. This is the nature of corrupted consciousness. Such a person has been cursed. How does a curse happen? Now I'll explain the mechanism of how a curse enters the head. When you want a curse to come into your head, you need to seek out a healer who tells everyone that a curse has entered your head. And when you found such a healer and come to them, they tell you, a curse has entered your head. At that very moment, they've actually cursed you. Before this, you lived normally, but afterward, you go around thinking, I've been cursed, I've been cursed. And if they had also told you who did it, then you'd never be able to get rid of it. You'd focus on that person thinking, hey, it's him who cursed me, and you'd be angry at him for your entire life. This resentment would grow more and more powerful inside, making it impossible to get rid of it. Can you imagine such a curse? You can't even get rid of it because negative thoughts about that person automatically make you feel worse. Can you imagine? Therefore, such a thing as a curse does not exist in nature if a person treats everyone well. People always curse themselves. If you think that someone has cursed you, just think well of that person who you believe has cursed you and send positive thoughts to that person. The curse will immediately pass. But the very thought that someone cursed you is already corrupted thinking. If you worry that bad energy can come from a garnet bought second-hand, know that it becomes good if you think positively about the person you bought it from. As for the stone itself, it may or may not suit us according to our nature, our constitution. If you bought a stone and wore it, and you feel worse, you need to take it off and stop wearing it, you understand? There are stones that suit you, but this is very rare, very rare. Perhaps only 2 out of 200 stones will suit you, you understand? And even then, it may be just a specific shade. It's very rare. Generally, a person with pure consciousness, that is, someone who wishes happiness for everyone, automatically develops intuition and understanding about which stones suit them and which don't. There are 2 ways of understanding. One is based on desire, when a person thinks the stone is pretty, so it suits me. In this case, such a person will suffer because they don't realize the difference between external beauty and internal strength. A person who sees a stone emanating the power of cooperation, freshness, calm, and happiness understands which stone to wear. Most often such stones look plain. They are not always beautiful. So you will be able to determine which stone suits you if your heart is pure. Humility is better than pride. Does this mean that a person shouldn't take pride in anything in life? Here we have an interesting transition. It means that a person should not take pride in anything in life. Yes, it means that they should not be proud of anything in life. Then look at the next phrase, not to strive for anything. So one can only strive to be proud of something. What does this orientation mean? Give me. That is, the orientation is such, not to strive for anything because there's nothing to be proud of. If a person doesn't want to be proud and is humble, it means that they can be proud of others, not of themselves. They can be proud of divine power or happiness, right? And for everything else. That is, pride can exist, but it should be directed toward justice, beauty, and kindness, not toward oneself. What can one be proud of? We can take pride in the existence of kindness, but we shouldn't be overly proud of ourselves. What does pride really mean? How would you explain the proverb, the more you know, the faster you age? There is a force at play when a person learns everything without any real need for the knowledge, without necessity, just out of curiosity, then this knowledge befouls them. Many people study everything to become great scientists. Eventually, they completely lose their understanding of the meaning of life. They become unapproachable and behave very arrogantly. This kind of knowledge increases pride. The more pride one has, the less opportunity they have to possess life force, because when a person is proud, everything around them resists. As Porfiry Ivanov used to say, nature doesn't like boasters. He says that's why everything starts to resist, and he loses vitality and ages. Another scenario is when a person acquires knowledge but doesn't want to use it. They may have intended to use it for others but didn't want it seriously enough. When a person acquires knowledge, they bear responsibility for applying it. If they don't use it, they also age, because life weighs them down. This means they didn't fulfill their promise to fate. There's a good expression, those who constantly replenish their knowledge live longer. This is absolutely true and aligns with what I'm saying. All scriptures talk about this. There are no contradictions here. The only question is the kind of knowledge you acquire. Many women wear jewelry made of stones exclusively for decorating clothes as an accessory. What's your attitude towards this? This is ancient knowledge, originating from Ayurveda, where stones were worn to gain strength for achieving certain goals in life. This means that stones carry support from higher living beings. This is an immense power that can give us health. In the past, when people had pure consciousness, they understood all these things very deeply. Every person saw the power of stones or consulted specialists who understood this better. Then a person wore certain stones that suited their nature, on the wrist or on the legs. Nowadays, it's like a monkey putting on glasses just because it saw someone wearing them. In India, many monkeys steal glasses. You can even find up to 50 pairs of glasses with them. You can't walk around in glasses there. Monkeys grab them and then sit in trees showing off the glasses. We now wear jewelry in exactly the same way. Sometimes we suffer because of it. In general, it's better to wear jewelry on clothing, as it has less effect on a person than wearing it directly on the body. It's better to wear artificial stones as accessories because plastic stones won't have a strong impact on the body. Nowadays, it is especially fashionable to wear jewelry made of amber, tiger's eye, hematite, and so on. These are the most potent stones that are suitable for very few people. If they suit someone, they can heal, but if they don't, they can cause a lot of trouble for the person wearing them. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much and see you soon.